Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Victor, and I'm going to be your anchor for this training. So I think this is the series 12 of the training. This is the CompTIA 2 core-based exams for the CompTIA A+ certification. So in previous series, we've looked at quite a lot in the curriculum. We are aware that the curriculum covers hardware, networks, cloud computing, basics, of course, hardware, network troubleshooting. It also covers, like in the last section, we looked at our home groups, domain setup, DNS, sharing printers, sharing files, hard disks, and all of that. In this section, we're going to be looking at installation and configuration concepts. Now, the objective is, given a scenario, apply application installation and configuration concepts. Now, you ask somebody, can you fix a PC? The person now asks software or hardware. So here we're talking about software, but there's a very close relationship between hardware and software, because most of the times you're trying to look at compatibility. You're trying to look at what is compatible with what, so that you have a smooth operation. Of course, talk about device driver, talk about system application, talk about office productivity or applications used to like better your office work. System requirements for application. So there's always a minimum requirement. We looked at it in one of our series before you can install every software. Take, for instance, if you say minimum requirement for Windows 11, you cannot just install Windows 11 without meeting the minimum requirement. So the minimum requirement is at least 1 GHz processor, 4 GB of RAM. So you cannot install Windows 11 on a 3 GB RAM. It's not going to be possible. Then, of course, your system must be a 64-bit processor. So you cannot have Windows 11 on the 32-bit processor. Now, what is the minimum requirement for, let's say, AutoCAD 2023? The point is that every software has its minimum requirements, and some of them also have hardware requirements, right? If the hardware cannot put up with the requirements, then it's not going to go through. Look at this AutoCAD, for instance, the resolution, basic 1280 times 800 display. So this is roughly about, you need at least a 2 GB RAM dedicated memory for graphics before it's going to go through. Then, of course, you need our recommended 4 GB RAM. Then if basic is 4 GB RAM, if you want something good, then 8 GB RAM minimum. And it should be 64 bits, not 32-bit operating system or PC. That's why if you try to install some software, it tell you that this software runs on 32-bit or it's not compatible with the 32-bit system. So before you make any changes to computer by installing hardware or software, it's essential to understand what hardware will work on the computer, and of course, what software. Same thing applies for RAM, for hard disks, for all of the different devices. There must be compatibility. Take, for instance, you have a PC, you have a Dell Inspiron 15, for an instance. I want to know the maximum RAM and RAM type. So that's compatibility there. So you want to know the maximum amount of RAM it can take. So it runs on maximum 8 gigs. That's 2 sticks of 4 gig. And it's DDR4. You cannot fix PC300 or DDR3 or DDR2 on the system. So if you want to upgrade a laptop, a system, you want to put a software into a hardware, one of the very basic things you need to understand is to first check for compatibility, make sure that everything is in sync before you do that. Okay, let's look at 32-bit and 64-bit file systems. Now, the key purpose of operating system is to keep track of all the files that are used on the computer. A file system describes how data and drives are organized. In Windows, the file systems you choose for a hard drive affects the following. So the drive letters, the wasted space, the less the wasted space, the better. The security of the system against tampering. So of course, 64-bit is going to do better. Let's check ChatGPT, and let's say let's have a table doing exhaustive and summarized, that's kind of comparative analysis between 32 bits and 64-bit operating system. So it's going to give us in a table format 32-bit, 64-bit. So let's have what it looks like. So we have features, memory addressing. So you cannot have a 32-bit operating system and you're going to be running 16 gig. Never possible. The maximum we can take is 4 gig. Wow. So for 64-bit, you go up to, of course, theoretically, 18.4 million terabytes. I think let this thing be done so that I'll do a few explanations before we move on. Okay, talked about feature proofing, software availability, architectural limits, and quite a lot. Let's look at a few of them. Memory addressing. That's why if you want to have enough, if you want to be able to utilize as much amount of the RAM, I think we discussed this when we're looking at memory. Then of course, performance. Check the previous module where we talked about memory, compatibility, hard drives. I think we looked at most of these things and we did some of these comparisons. So you can look it up, have most of these things and understand them, understand how they work. It will help you not just to pass the exam, but to be able to help you do diagnostics, be able to prescribe what might be a solution to what you have diagnosed. So this we looked at FAT32, NTFS. All these are file systems, exFAT. So you could do a comparative analysis of all the different file systems also and see the advantages, their disadvantages, something like this. Different file systems like FAT32, NTFS, etc. And compare their features, advantages, disadvantages, etc. Let's have the response in a tabular format, right? We're going to have something close. You need to also learn prompt engineering. It's going to help you also perfect your learning. Once you're studying, once you're learning, one of the good ways to learn is to do comparative analysis. One of the few ways to also learn is to check for differences, is to check for features. This is going to help you sum up your learnings so that you learn very, very swiftly and very, very fast. Now look at it's comparing FAT32 NTFS exFAT. Then maximum volume size, encryption, is it possible, journaling, fragmentation, disk space efficiency, compatibility, advantages, disadvantages, and all of that. So these are things you could study for your knowledge. Okay, dedicated RAM. I think I talked about dedicated RAM a while ago. If you right-click on display settings, then you go to multiple display, sorry, not display, advanced display, then adapter properties. So you're going to see the dedicated RAM, dedicated video memory, shared system memory, total available graphics memory. So this is about 10 gig out of a 20 gig RAM that this system runs. So that tells you, so dedicated memory is going to help this system to like commit some graphic processing units to be efficient in delivering, especially things that are going to consume a lot of video or graphics or all of that. So the less the graphics memory, of course, the less efficient is going to be to do rendering, to do let's say gaming, to do all of those football, sports. If you want to try to do this thing that require heavy RAM, that require heavy graphics, heavy videos, and the rest, then you need a lot of dedicated RAM. Then video random access memory, still related to video. So most of these video cards are going to have a lot of requirements. Some of them can go up to 16 gig. RAM requirements, I've talked about this also. It's very crucial, very important. You don't just pick up any RAM. You must make sure that it's compatible with the system you're running. Same thing with CPU. External hardware tokens, especially for multi-factor authentication, if the system is configured as such. You have this applied in banking also. Storage requirements. For every operating system, they're going to have compatibility. They're going to have they're going to have their minimum requirements. I just compared a while ago 32-bit and 64-bit. This applies to Windows and also applies to Mac. Now, how are these softwares being distributed? Now, previously used to be via CD-ROM, but because of piracy, most of the manufacturers don't even have that on the site, except for evaluation copies. Evaluation copies will be like 30, 180 days, 60 days, thereabout. And they would want you to have its licensed to your PC. But earlier years used to have it come in CD. When the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer, makes the PC, gets the operating system from the vendor, Microsoft or any of those companies, installs, sets it up, still leaves the CD for you, the end user. But because of all of the reasons I mentioned, you don't have that again. So Microsoft, Apple, they would want to track all their users to be able to know percent of persons using the software, using pirated version, and be able to help them understand the user experience of their softwares and help them to better produce better softwares. So it can be distributed either via ISO files or image, or via USB or via CD. And of course, some of them come shipped with the hardware, that's with the PC. One thing you should also consider when you look at new applications is impact on the device. So you don't just, I'm not a fan of updates, but since the Windows 11 is typically kind of difficult to like say you don't want updates, because somehow the system is going to find a way to do its update. Most of the things you're going to try, it's still going to find a way to like get its way out and do the updates. Then you want to check whatever you're updating. Like my camera now, I guess my camera have issues. I have not had time for it. Even the subsequent videos from next 2 days or so, I'll have time to like troubleshoot it and fix it, because I'm sure it's maybe one of the updates I had earlier on. So solutions is going to be for me to roll back that update, or to try to see if I can remove the device driver and put the device driver back. As we know that a device driver is that software that tells the hardware how to communicate with the operating system, right? So before you add a new software, you want to look at the impact to the device, impact to network, impact to operations. Operations is very key. Who is going to be using that PC at that time? Or is it on the cloud? What is going to be the time lag? Impact to business continuity. Now let's look at common operating system types. So we have workstations, those you normally use on your desks. In workstations, you have the Windows. You have, of course, they started from DOS. Then, of course, with the several versions. If I actually need to tell me all the versions of Windows till date, of versions of Windows and Mac and Linux till date. The guy knows I love my answers in tabular format. I guess he's going to give me the, he didn't do that. Okay, I'm going to ask the question back and tell it to give me the versions, and also try to put them at per year. So let me just stop generating. Let me type this and say, let me have my answer in a tabular format. Let's have the what's it called? There's always a date of launch and end of life. End of lives. So let's have this in a tabular format, because every operating system is going to have when it's launched and of course when it's ended. When the manufacturer or the vendor is not going to is not longer going to support that particular operating system. So every operating system is going to have by the manufacturer the date that they will stop maintaining it. They'll stop doing updates, stop doing patches, stop doing upgrades. You're not able to maybe upgrade from that to maybe something else. Some of them, they will still allow you to be able to update from that to something else and all of that. So this is a very simplistic, like I told you, putting your research in a tabular format helps you understand. For a person, for instance, what I used was 98, 90 ME, Millennium Edition, and then XP, Vista, all of course still 11. When you see TBD, it's to be determined, because this is the latest now for Windows. The guy said, and so on for each Mac version. Oh God. Okay, the Mac version is very abbreviated. Mac has had versions named after big cats, lions, mountain lion, and later moved to California theme names, Majove, Catalina, and all of that. So if I wanted to also bring that, okay, let's have all the versions for Mac OS. Just Mac OS. So let's have a list. So the public beta Cheetah is the name of the cat. I think Puma is also the name of the cat. Jaguar, then Panther, then Tiger, Leopard, Snow Leopard, Lion. So these are the different versions of. Then you have Yosemite, Maverick. You have El Carpensera. Also Majove, Catalina, Big Sur. Okay, I think we've had more versions after Big Sur. Okay, the following note in the CompTIA A Plus exam objective sets out guidelines for the content of Windows 11. Then 220.1101 and 220.1102 exams were released. Although 11 is not specifically detailed in separate objectives, the following applies. Versions of Microsoft Windows are not end of mainstream support as determined by Microsoft, up to including Windows 11 are intended content areas of certification. As such, objectives in which a specific version of Windows is not indicated in the main objectives title can include content related to Windows 10 and Windows 11, because this relates to your job role. Like if you see, if I search in the objectives, if I search Windows 11, you see in the content, you see it stopped at Windows 10. Okay, so for Mac, we have Apple Market. We've looked at most of these versions. So it's for you to know the versions, know the different operating system. Then same thing applies for Linux. Know their different distributions. Ubuntu means Kali, Red Hat. Like I typically use the Kali and Ubuntu. So they are all variants of the Linux operating system. Of course, you have the one developed by Google. I've used one or two tablets that have the Google operating system. Very simplistic, very light. It can run on Android, or Linux, and on Windows. Very, very lightweight. So it's mostly used for educational purpose. Chrome OS or Chrome PC. Chrome or Google laptop. Google, they have their own hardwares. They call them Chromebooks. So those Chromebooks, they run the Chrome OS, right? They run the Chrome OS. So very, very lightweight. If you use them, so if you want to deploy systems for educational purposes, this is very affordable, very, very sleek, very, very nice. If you see the way they are, they come shipped with all of those Google applications. Google have quite a lot of application for education, for business, like the Skype, the Gmail, the Drive. So everything is just there. All the things you typically use for work, you have it there for exams, for all of that. So for education, you're going to see quite a lot of, and they customize from different vendors like HP, for Dell, and they also have their own hardware, right? So see them, just $219. You have 4 gig, 32 gig space. Of course, if you want to get this same another brand, it might be slightly higher. So sleek, nice Chromebooks, as you call it, from different vendors, mostly for educational purpose or for dedicated use. They're not something that you want to use for your, find computers and laptops for schools. Then you have for tablets, for mobiles, you have Android operating system, you have iOS. We call them closed or proprietary, so they are closed. Android is an example of an open source operating system. That's where you're going to see different companies that are going to come, pick up the base version and kind of release their own adapted version of the core operating system. That's why you don't see 2 phone or 3 phone manufacturers. The look and feel of the operating system on their phones is always slightly different. It's because it's an open source project. So you take the base operating system and each phone manufacturer is going to adapt it to how he wants it to be like. But if it is closed, like iOS, Windows is also closed, though highly pirated. A good example is iOS. You see that you can't modify, you just use it as it is. So these are some of the features of iOS and some of these operating systems. We've talked about file systems also. I'm just trying to run through this, briefly pick up the most important aspects to discuss them so that we can catch up. There, I talked about in a table, this table, differentiated between NTFS, FAT, and XFAT. So this is it here. So NTFS, FAT, and XFAT. So I've already done description. So you could put it on ChatGPT, get a description, keep this in your notes, memorize them for the purpose of exams and for practice. So these are those differences, those encryption. What are the things that are possible and what are the things that are not possible? Yeah, so in terms of allocation table, how much space can it take? That's what you have here. Maximum file space, how much can it take maximum? And all of that. We talked about end of life also. Understand that every operating system is going to have when it's not going to be supported again. So end of life is the date at which the manufacturer says, if you still have it, you can keep having it, but I'm not going to support you. I'm not going to release updates for you to be able to use it. So it becomes depreciated and it becomes a legacy. Anytime you hear the word legacy, we're talking about old, defaults, right? So these are those dates we were looking at when we did our search. You have them also published by Microsoft. If you say end of life of Windows, then you're going to have that. So they're telling you that by next year, if you're using Windows 10, you're not going to have updates again. You're not going to have releases. You're not going to have patches, security fix. That means everything will not be on Windows 11. And we are very, very sure that by Windows 11, by next year, 2025, we're going to have a new operating system. Windows OS after 11. The question is 12. When is it going to be released? Are we going to call it 12 or what are we going to call it? So you can research that and know when that is going to be expected. potential future, of course, sometime around 2024 or 2025, so that, because it's always good to have two operating system version in use. People can do upgrades, people can downgrade, people can, some of their legacy softwares, they can adapt it so that they can use it on the newer softwares. Okay, I think we're going to do a pause here, vendor-specific limitations. Okay, so we're going to look at OS installation upgrades in a diverse operating environment. So that's what we're going to be looking at next. So thank you very much. Don't forget to ask questions. If you have any concerns, you can drop that in the comment section and I'm going to reply.